Good morning, ladies and gents. Today is hopefully going to be pretty simple. Plus I made some changes on my own, so obviously that's going to affect how things were going. When we last left off, I was working on combat items, specifically. You can kind of see I've changed how I wanted my combat UI to work. Oop, sorry about that. Instead of bringing up a window, trying to kill some functionality and mess with it that way, I've instead decided to just make my own separate UI for using items when you're in combat. And it makes for a much more straightforward answer, honestly. You end up with something a lot cleaner, and at the same time it gives us a lot more control over it, how we want it to look, how we want it to feel, and how we want it to act when you're actually in combat. Oops, did not mean to do that, but that works. So, for example, the warrior clicks item. Hey, look, he's got all these health potions. The part we haven't done is we haven't put in the click controls here, but you can actually even cancel and go back and say, maybe I don't want to use an item, or maybe there isn't an item here that I want to use. And so what we need to do is get the click option on each of these, which shouldn't be too hard considering that's a prefab we've built. Specifically this combat item UI prefab. So I'm actually going to go so far as to, I'm pretty sure prefabs keep their information, so this is partially a test for me as well. We're just going to add a pointer click to an event trigger attached to this thing. Okay, good. Yeah, if I close things, good. It sticks around. That makes me happy. Right, it's actually not what I wanted to do, although it's a good step in the right direction. Where is my combat item UI? There we go. So this just needs a couple interfaces, specifically, actually a single interface, the iPointer click handler using Unity engine dot. I don't think it's UI, I actually think it's event systems. Yeah. There we go. And we can just tell it to implement the interface for us and then nuke the not implemented exception because that's a little silly. So we just need to really create a function for this thing to call and then tie in all the little bits and pieces that we've got. For example, right now we have no ties to anything, right? There's no way for this combat item UI to easily call on anyone else. So we need to do that. It looks like the combat UI is the one that actually does the setting. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an inventory. Whoop. This is going to be our item ref. Morning, Mental. And everyone else. I'm kind of sad I didn't get a chance to stream on Sunday, but my car needed a lot more work than I thought it did, and yeah, if you've ever malleted your finger with a rubber mallet trying to get a post back on a battery, it doesn't exactly leave you wanting to type with that finger afterwards, I'll give you that much. Honestly, part of me is tempted to get a GoPro just so I can, like, document all the work I do on this silly car. I call it silly, but I absolutely love the thing. And I also want the owning character. There we go. I'm kind of realizing how much stuff needs to get attached to this combat item UI. It's not the end of the world, but it is a fair amount of information. So we grab our combat item UI, we have to grab the script, obviously. And we have to set that item ref that we just grabbed. And obviously we also have to set the owner. Otherwise we have no idea who things would be attached to. There we go. A little white space just for readability's sake. I love to make sure that my code is readable, at least in chunks. You'll note that related things tend to be next to each other, and then I'll put white space in to delineate kind of a new thought or a new piece of code that has a different function. It just keeps me from kind of losing my mind while looking over my code like months later when I don't remember what I was doing or why I was coding this thing or what the thing was, without leaving like gratuitous amounts of comments. You'll note, in fact, that commenting is rare, if at all, in most of my code. The biggest thing is that you'll see function separators, and that's pretty much it. It's just because I like to keep my code readable enough that I don't need commenting. Self-documenting code is kind of the best thing that you can write. You don't have to take up the space with the comments. Your code is still obvious enough that anyone else can look at it. Certain things like this, like I can read this very quickly and understand what's going on, partially because I wrote it and I know my own style, but I would hope that someone else who looks at this would also have a good understanding of what's going on. So let's see here. We've got our combat item UI. We've got the item ref and owning character set up. So when you click on it, oh, there's one more piece we need here. One more piece. We need some way to set the item. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create this function called setItemAction. Is that the way I want to do this? I think so. Actually, maybe it's not. Maybe we just want to add one more piece of information very quickly to this. Let's have the combat UI just pass its own pointer in. I say pointer, guys, it's reference, I know. Just saying pointer is kind of a leftover from my C++ work. It's just kind of how I talk. I know it's not exactly correct, but it's kind of close enough, and if you understand references and their similarities to pointers, then you'll note that it's not that far off in terms of usability. So when you click on it, we want to do a few things. One, we want to, we need a new, where is it? The combat action, I believe? No, it's a player combat action. That's what it is. So we have an attack action for players, and we have a rest action, but we don't have an item action. Player item action. And I don't like how Visual Studio continues to attempt to... I really wish it wouldn't do that. It's incredibly annoying the way it does that. It likes to control your white space. And I know I've got preferences and settings for it, but I feel like no matter how many times I set those, something happens. And before long, why am I just typing this? Copy paste is a thing. It's a tool that I should use. There we go. Alright. So, what does the item action have to have stored in it is the first thing. Because we can't just have no information in here. Otherwise we have no idea what item to use, what player's using it, all that stuff. So we need our item reference. Inventory, not inventory. Inventory item. We probably want the player character who owns the item. And we probably also want the player character. You guys also get to watch all my crazy mistypes. No, okay. Sorry, just wanted to make sure that Michelangelo here wasn't in the scene. I have a bunch of these things like sitting next to my computer, and so I just noticed he might like be in the camera frame. I was like, let's shift him. Item target, and I think that should be enough information for us, at least for now. Oh, I don't need item owner, I don't think, because that's going to come in through player character. So really just item target is going to be the only other piece of information we want here. And I'm making proper constructors for these things because they're not any kind of Unity class, and when Unity doesn't control something, I tend to revert back to basic object-oriented stuff. And by stuff, I mean design. Sorry. Where the basis here is simply that I'm trying to ensure that all of my object-oriented code is kind of bunched up in one place, and then all my Unity code is bunched up next to it in its own little subsection. This is something that Unity has no handle on, doesn't even know it exists, so I'm keeping it object-oriented for now. And that's why you'll note no public. I'm keeping these things private. If you don't put anything on a class, it puts private in front of it just by default, so you don't even have to bother with that. That's just kind of good. It's a good standard to just write the access type. You don't really need to, but it's good to have. It makes things a little more easily readable. So when we say process action, we're kind of down to the last piece here. What do I need to do in order to spend this item the same way we do in the UI? I'm actually going to look up my inventory UI. Let's see here. Maybe it's inside the consumable item. It actually probably is. On use equip. So here's the target, and then they have this item UI. Interesting. So I might need another use case in here for, because on use equip is great, right? I want to use most of the code that's in here. The problem is that this inventory item UI is very specific. Let's look at the innards of this real quick. Yeah, this has a lot of specific stuff inside of it, and I kind of want to I don't want to have a ton of copies of this, but at the same time, I can't help but note that there is this being virtual, let's see, no, that's fine actually. I kind of want to make sure that this doesn't get overused is the big thing. Whether it's because it's got this inventory item UI, which is a very specific piece of code. And so when I create this thing, I want to ensure that I'm not just like calling some silly thing. Consumable item. Okay, so let's do this. We've got, first off, we have to get the text. Something that is very simple to do if we copy and paste the code from below. Okay, we've got the text UI. We say text UI.text is character dot character name. For now, I'm going to say drinks Consumes. Because we might have food later on, and drinks doesn't exactly work when you're talking about a loaf of bread. Just saying. Drinks A, let's see. Item dot... Nope, that's the item target. I want the item ref dot item name. And then I want the effects to kick in. And this is kind of the hard part. Detecting what effects have changed are going to be a little difficult. I might not even go so far as to put some of the effects in, because something could have like 4 or 5 different effects, right? Say it's a cure-all, so it heals, it gives stamina, it removes effects, it gives a bonus to something. I don't want to list all of those in order. That just seems like it seems like it's a little overkill. And then of course we need to actually apply the effect, and this is kind of the hardest part, because right now our only way of actually consuming that effect is it's using this consumable item object, and the problem is you'll note that it requires this inventory item UI. And I'm really, really not happy about having to use that. Well, because this is very specific, I actually may go back to the inventory item, wherever that went, and put another one alongside it. So this is our context menu in inventory window, versus this is the combat item menu. I'll keep using the word window. It's technically a window. On use equip. On use. This doesn't even have an equip. And instead of having an inventory item UI, there's actually just nothing else. And we're going to leave that one blank too. In fact, I'm going to just crunch these down a little bit. Since they have no definition, I don't mind doing this. As long as there's any code in there, you won't find the function being a single line. But because these are closer to, they're almost closer to an abstract function as well, an unimplemented function, I don't actually feel the need to do that quite as much. So here's our onUse. What I'm actually going to do is copy this up to here. I'm also tempted to downcast this to a character, just because. I don't think it'll hurt. Specifically because everybody has... Come on, character. There we go. Okay, so now we just call the onUse with a use target. And that actually doesn't look too bad, right? We've got the actual code functionality in one place, and then we've got the item removed from inventory in the other place. We still don't have the owner. So we should add this in, because this is something we need to take care of. Right? We've got, yeah. For this case, it's simply the use target again. because we know the use target is a player character. And maybe it's not so bad to make this a player character, because we know this is coming in through the inventory UI, therefore it must be a player character who is attempting to use it. I keep playing with my my arguments mostly because I want to make sure that everything is simple enough that I can still make use of it, but that it's not so complex that I have to do a ton of casting all over the place. You'll note that by changing the type, it lessens the number of casts in place, which tends to mean I'm passing things around correctly. Okay, so inventory item, where is that combat action that uses it? We have the item ref dot on use. Here is our, let's see, our item target. Here's our owner. And that's really all we need. The last step is just to make sure that for a consumable item that we remove it from the item owner's inventory. So item owner. I wonder if there's a good way to do this, because you'll note the item UI has an easy way to do this. Specifically, it just goes into the inventory slot and removes it that way. Makes me wonder if there's a better way to remove this. Sorry. Picking things up. Let's see here. Hobbly gobbly. Sorry, I didn't even notice that people have been talking. Yeah, a lot of people use the var keyword. I'm not a huge fan of that either. Var is kind of it's a lazy way out for certain cases when lazy is great. The biggest thing that it was best for is auto has kind of the same usages in C++, where you want to shorten something absurdly long to var, right? 3 letters. Pretty simple. And it's nice if you're doing an instantiation right there in line. So you say var some variable name equals a new, and then you go on some tirade of like, it's a dictionary of lists of strings and pairs of ints and, you know, something else. You don't want that on each side of your declaration, so using var is not that bad there. The problem is when you do something like for each var item in something, because it's not obvious without checking the for each statement what the heck you're iterating over, right? It's just kind of this moment of, oh god, I have to actually I have to look something up, I have to check something. And that kills time as a programmer. You really don't want to. It kills time kind of in the same way that taking your hands off the keyboard does. You kind of avoid it if possible, and it speeds everything up a little bit. I consider it a bit of a failure. Not a failure, but a bit of a bad thing if I take my hands off the keyboard for too terribly long. That's why you'll see me navigating around a lot using keys and you know, shortcuts and things. So let's see, on use of item, we have to find a way to remove it from the item, from the owner's inventory. So we're going to do the easiest thing we can. For each inventory item in the item owner's inventory. You can hear the tip-tap of little feet. It's lovely. Means I need to clip my dog's nails. No need to apologize. Adorable dogs playing is not something I mind. I'm actually realizing that this and this might overlap. Not the end of the world, but something we want to keep in mind. So if item is this, then item owner dot inventory slots. Ooh, I didn't think about this. This needs to be a standard for statement. 0 I is less than dot inventory slots dot length plus I There we go. Item is item owner dot inventory slots I. There we go. Now we've cleaned this up. If the item is this, then the inventory slots I, we set that to null so that obviously we don't want the item to exist anymore. And for us, this is pretty much all that matters. The only thing that remove item from inventory should do at this point, slot UI.remove item. I'm actually going to leave this in here because it's not going to hurt, right? It's going to jump in and say, here's the inventory slot, set it to null. Well, it's already going to be null. So it's not actually going to hurt anything, and because it does it with a function, that's not a huge issue. Yes, it does it twice. No, I don't particularly care because it's good. It's a good backup to have. Yeah. I'm a big fan of backup systems. If something goes wrong, I want to make sure something else catches it still, if possible. Woo! Careful, dog. He just climbed up on the back of the couch and then nearly fell off of it. Dog, you were silly. Very silly. Alright, so let's try it. Oh, there's one more piece to the puzzle here. We choose an item action. It brings up this screen. On click, it makes use of the combat item UI. Yes, thank you. We never actually assigned any of this. So we need to say combat UI dot, whoops. I think it's the, no, that's not right. It is the, where is it? Okay, this. It's this action list that I don't have access to, it seems. Let's write a public function to handle this. Set action for character and as the I player combat action list. Here's our character and it equals action. Sweet, done, easy. Accessibility parameter. Huh, really? Let's just add public to this real quick and then get rid of it again. I gotta say, I kind of like that functionality to be able to peek at code, make a little change, and then throw it back to the side, get rid of it, keep moving. It's nice. It's a neat touch. What do you mean? Did it not make the change? Let's see here. Okay, let's try this again. Peak definition. No, there's, oh, that's not the problem. That's the problem. Whatever. Cool. We done? That fixed? Yes. Yes, it is. Okay, back here. Combat UI dot set action. Here is our owning character. And then we have the what? A new crap. Not a new crap. A new player item action. Where the item is this item, and the target for now is going to be the owner. Eventually, we'll want to be able to pick targets. So, for example, I click, you know, this potion needs to be poured down that guy's throat, or this explosive potion you probably want to throw at these bad guys. And that kind of gives us a better idea of who the target is. For now, the target is always self, and we'll have to go through and handle that later. Interesting. Okay, I'm also noticing that one helper function is actually something I need access to. Specifically this advanced character choice. This needs to go from helper to public function. To function that I can call specifically. Actually, let's set this at the top, right next to our set action. Because these two are kind of similar, right? Setting action and advancing character choice. Kind of the same. So here's our combat UI dot advance. Really? Did I not? Oh, I didn't add public. Sorry. There's our... The only reason I'm not a huge fan of this right now is you'll note that set action and advanced character choice were both previously private, as the combat UI was actually a was using those internally and not externally. It kind of makes me wonder if I should somehow be doing that through like a function pointer instead. Or if set action, here we go, this actually might be better. If you call set action, it'll automatically call the advanced character choice, which will allow me to make this a helper again. I'm kind of a stickler about my helpers staying helpers when possible. I really don't want to start exposing too much functionality to the rest of the world, because that breaks down our object-oriented code. Okay, but I think I got it. I think that should take care of it. Let's see if that's the case. Whoops, I don't want to actually walk away from this. So the warrior is going to drink a health potion. Okay, it did leave open the item controls. That's something else that I need to make sure changes, but that's something that we can ensure within the combat UI. So whenever you go through here, let's see here. I just kind of want to make sure that this this gets set as it should. Yeah, so we want to take the, let's see, what happens if I just cancel item action? I'm kind of curious, because what does cancel item action do? It destroys all the game objects, it sets it back to true. Yeah, you know what, that's fine. I'm just going to call that each time we advance, and that should keep the items from continuing to be... There we go, look at that. Now the rogue doesn't have any items, and I just noticed that we're covering things. We're actually covering everything. That's a terrible place for that piece of UI. Let's fix this and get rid of that. Yeah, no, this should definitely not be here. I can't believe I put that there, forgetting that that was a thing. So, people punching bats, meh. Hey, he consumes a health potion, great. Like, it didn't... I do need to ensure that... There we go, he took damage, good. We can double check that it actually is, like, doing what it should now. Item, hey, look, he's only got 2 health potions. I really need to get spells in here. I think that's going to be the next thing I do. It pretty much has to be. I'm running out of non-spell things, and the mage feels kind of silly, same with the cleric, as long as they have no spells. So I really need to take care of that. Also, you'll note, warrior, full health, good, means things worked. I also need to get all the rest of these guys weapons, because it feels kind of silly that the rogue is still punching things, as is the cleric and mage. Hey, look at that. Combat's over, and if we check him, he's only got the 1 health potion remaining. So we're actually in pretty good shape here. That looks nice. It looks like all the functionality is there. So I'm going to take a moment. Whoops. Did not mean to kill my Twitch stuff. I know you guys are still there. I kind of lose my screen with all of it there. Okay, we want the combat item stuff. For now, I'm going to revert these. It just makes the items a little smaller. I'm not a huge fan of having them so tiny, but I also don't want to start making modifications to my art assets quite yet. Feature finished item consumption during combat with new combat item UI. I don't know why I put a semicolon at the end of that line. That is such a muscle memory thing. And if you guys have any questions, if I'm doing something silly or if I'm doing something in some way that you don't understand, feel free, ask away. I'm always happy to explain what I can. And as it turns out, if I can't explain it terribly well, which is part of why I talk so much, if I can't explain it terribly well, I might not be doing it the right way, honestly. So it's helpful to have you guys asking questions about why I do things and how I handle things in certain ways. It kind of helps me think through my own code, and it also helps me make sure that, at least for you guys, that you also understand what's going on here, or maybe you guys are learning about how to do some of this stuff as well. Particularly because this isn't entirely for my benefit, I hope. I know the, 18 of you that are here, it definitely is hopefully helpful. We'll see. Let's actually, now that I have a moment, I'm actually going to go ahead and put weapons in people's hands. For example, the rogue, it feels really bizarre to not have a dagger in his hand. Crap. Right hand, I think, is number 9. Let's double check our inventory item real quick. Yeah, I think that's 7, 8, 9. 9 is our right hand. So we'll grab a starter dagger, we'll dump it in that last slot, hit save. Okay, there's the dagger in his hand, and yeah, okay, good. He's got access to it. Good, good. Want to make sure that our characters are happy with all the things in their hands. Just going to take the extra step to also throw a sword in the cleric's hands. The mage, we're about to give some pretty friggin' awesome spells if we do this right. And so things like Mind Blast and Firebolt and stuff. So we don't really, I don't feel too bad about leaving him without something in his hand at the moment. Let's see. I can just erase item. Wow, that's really on there. It's been there for a while, I think. That or this whiteboard marker is not as easy to erase as it says it is. Whatever. It's close enough. It's good enough. Yeah, I'm down to 3 things, and one of them is a pain. So running is not that bad. Running should be pretty simple. Removing somebody from a fight should not be a difficult thing. Equipping items is going to be difficult, mostly because I have to retain some kind of diff is what I'm thinking. Just a list of items and what you've done with them. So for example, if you equip an armor, a weapon, and discard a potion all at the same time, I have to remember each of those changes and then ensure that those get made in the final form. It's not that bad, but it's enough. It's difficult enough, mostly because it has to be delayed until the character's turn, that I don't really want to dive into it quite yet, because that feels like it should require an extra bit of architecture. Even if it's just going to be like a copy and paste of the combat UI and then making some tweaks on that. Or I'm sorry, not the combat, the inventory UI. Making some tweaks on the inventory UI, especially since the inventory UI is not really in a form I'm terribly happy with. There's no mannequin, and it's missing a lot of, whoop, not what I meant to do. There's no mannequin in the background right here. And I'm missing a lot of the other slots, right? We don't have head, we don't have neck, we don't have belt, pants, shirt, rings. I'm trying to think of other things, but I've got a fair number of inventory slots that I want to make sure are like fillable things. And obviously, having your character kitted out is important, and knowing what each slot here means is also fairly important. So I want to make sure that the slots have the mannequin and they also have their own images and likenesses, so you understand what's going on. Let's see. So what can... Okay, so starting in on spells. Spells is an interesting thing. Mostly because we're going to have this set list of spells, right? So in the same way we have daggers and other things, I kind of think that I'm going to have a bunch of scriptable objects. Yeah, I think I'm going to have a bunch of scriptable objects that actually have the stats of the spell inside of it, along with the effects that might happen. I think that's going to be the way I do this. So, let's see. Inventory item. This is kind of the base for what an item looks like, right? We have name, we have icon, we have the slot we're using. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of make a copy of this. Not a exact copy, obviously, but under scripts, we're going to create a new, this is going to be a, is it really just going to be a spell? Inventory item, player spell? Maybe it'll be a player spell. No, spells are kind of universally usable. I kind of want something else attached here, but I don't know what. A spell base? A spell base that I can build upon? Am I ever going to build upon it, though? That's the question. Like, no, I'll just use spell for now. Whatever. Come on, open it up. There we go. Thank you. So this is a scriptable object. And for some reason, Unity doesn't want to recognize that. Oh, no, there it goes. Okay. And we rip all this out. And let's see here. So we've got spell name, the spell icon, right? These are both obvious things necessary, kind of make it usable and helpful to have. Let's see here. Here's our damage base. A damage bonus. How do we defend against spells? I know most RPGs have systems such as D&D has a saving throw system where you say, well, it's a fireball, so therefore it's a dex save to dive out of the way, or it's a poison spell, so therefore it's your constitution to save against the spell. Or it's a mind-altering spell, so it's going to be wisdom to realize that somebody's messing with your mind and put up your mental defenses. I almost want an enum of some kind. And I started to actually look up in my document exactly what my defenses to spells would be, but I don't actually think I wrote it down. I'm not finding the information, so probably... So what? We want our defenses. We also... Is there anything else? Trying to think of anything else I want in here to ensure that this kind of works out. Oh, I know. We need an enumeration for all the effects we can cause. So if you can cause nausea, paralysis, sleep, like that we definitely want in here. We also want a list of effects that it cures on the target. So we want to say, you know, oh, this one cures, say you cast it on a party member and it cures sleep or paralysis or poison, right? So we want to make sure that there's also a cures ailments enumeration. Also a target enumeration, so single target versus cone versus area versus group versus party, right? Party is a good target enum. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to put that in right now. Here's our spell target enum. Thank you. So we have self, right? You can only cast it on yourself. We've got single target. We've got the party. We've got group. Trying to think of other easy ones, but I think that's really, oh, all, right? Everyone in the scene, don't care. Even yourself. I guess I might do all excluding self. But I'm not actually going to put that in until I feel like I need it. I'll see if I can think of more eventually. But in terms of spell target, I think that's a good set. There's our affected target. I'll just call it the spell target. So Unity, if you're using an interface or an abstract class in Unity, most of the time you're doing something wrong, unfortunately. As much as I love interfaces and abstract classes, they have little place in a lot of Unity's architecture. They've got some, and in some places, such as using the combat item UI, where we have the I pointer click handler attached, that's one of the few places where event handlers are ushered through an interface, and so knowing the interfaces is definitely a powerful tool. But the rest of the time, like, Unity doesn't really make much use of these. And so mental to say that, you know, not knowing how to use interfaces or abstract classes, it's definitely a great tool to use. I'd say, I'm trying to think of, like, good object-oriented architecture tends to use a lot of interfaces. Also, as Cybertech is saying, you can also get component. I'd actually say he's using the form get component using the type of. I don't like that usage pretty much ever. For me, it's pretty much always I use the generic usage instead of the this usage case. I don't know if that's different for interfaces, but as far as I can tell, I pretty much always use the generic. The generic has always been a lot cleaner. It generates a little extra code, yes, but at the same time, I think it's faster as well. But it should be at least type safe a lot. I don't know, I guess it's just kind of a cleanliness thing for me at this point. You don't have to cast as much. It feels like the engine would be doing a lot more typecasting if you use the type of version. I'm not actually certain because I don't have access to the innards of Unity. So for all I know, it could actually be backwards. It could be that, you know, the generic one is the ugly one and you don't want to do it that way. But yeah, there are definitely uses for it. So let's see here. Oh, I see what you're saying, Cybertech. Okay, the problem with the generic is that it's using a where T is component, and an interface can't inherit from a class of component. Got it. Okay, yeah, I figured there was some reason why you were using that over the other. Good point. So, causes and cures. Let's see, I have actually a list of that somewhere. I think I call them status conditions. Character conditions, hey. And we just want to attach our enum flag attribute to it and use our type of character conditions for each of these. So that's that. We still have to come up with our defenses. Actually, I have to come up with a way to get out of here because I gotta leave in a couple minutes. Yeah. Guys, unfortunately, it is coming up on that time when I must leave. If you have any more questions, feel free, toss them in the chat, and I'll answer them best as I can. If you like what you see, if you've been enjoying yourself today, please hit the follow button below. I definitely always enjoy seeing the support. Unfortunately, my phone is dead, so I don't get to hear the little noise that it makes whenever somebody follows. It's what it happens for getting. It's what I get for getting a refurbished phone. But aside from that, thanks a lot, guys, for joining me. I might poke at this for another minute or two, but for the most part, I think a lot of the spell implementation stuff is going to have to happen tomorrow. We've got the basic scriptable object in place. I might want to attach a little bit more to it. For example, spell level kind of makes sense as something we want to have here. Also, probably spell cost in terms of mana is going to be something we also want to do here. Yeah, we'll call it cost per level. I like that. Specifically, if you cast a level, I don't want level 1 spells to become immediately useless the moment you get level 2 spells. So to be able to cast a level 1 spell with twice the power at level 2, or maybe not twice the power, but you know, a significant increase in power at level 2 for the cost of a little extra mana might not be a bad idea. I definitely don't think that's a terrible idea. Yeah, I like it. Cost per level, yeah, all makes sense. We just have to figure out, make sure this is all the information we want in here, and then go so far as to actually take the information, toss it to the side, and once we've got it all handled, start making ourselves some spells, and then start making it so that our wizard, the poor guy who actually has the spell weaving class, can actually, or sorry, not class, the spell weaving skill. It is a class too, but he's mostly got the skills to do it. That he can actually start casting these things. It would also kind of be fun to attach some of this to consumables. So being able to have like a potion of fireball would be really neat. I'll have to figure out how to do that, but still, it would be cool. Alright guys, thanks again for joining me. I have to take off, but I will be back tomorrow at the same time. I will be here from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard. So please feel free, drop on by again. It's great having you guys all here. If you feel like you've missed any of my streams, not only does Twitch have the VODs, but also my YouTube channel has them all. I've been uploading them today. I'm going to start posting them pretty much as quickly as they come in. So thanks again, guys, for joining me, and